We all contribute to the public interest. Good evening and good morning and good afternoon to all of you. I'm in a sunny Johannesburg, and thank you all for joining us. Um, what a nice video was that, and please also go to our new PIOB website. I was recently appointed as the chair of the PIOB, taking over from Eddie, and I have the privilege to welcome you. So welcome to all of you. There's so many important and distinguished guests here today. I'm not going to name all of you, but welcome to the past and the present PIOB members, monitoring group members, IFAC members, and staff, our own staff. I'll say a little bit more about them later on. It is really a privilege to have you. We are seeing ourselves as being surrounded by friends and colleagues today, and shall I call you co-gladiators, people that want to serve the public interest with us. There's only one person that I will name though, and that is my predecessor, Eddie Weimers. Eddie gave the baton over to me on the 1st of April, and we were very sad that we couldn't have a nice farewell function for him, and we were hoping that by now, Eddie, we can see you face to face and also say goodbye. You will hear from Eddie later on. So we're very happy to have him here, and this function in a way doubles up a little bit as his farewell as well. Eddie was of course instrumental to bring us to where we are today as the PIOB. He's described by his colleagues, and I've seen it as well, as a high-minded person, a person that's very generous with his opinions and very generous with sharing his wisdom. But today, and this celebration is about the PIOB, and it's about all of you, and we thank you. I really would like to thank you for being here. Thank you for standing here with us today, and we're going to look back a little bit and hopefully celebrate a few successes, but also learn from our mistakes or our learnings from the past. And we're also privileged to stand here today with you to look forward, and to look forward at the task at hand and how do we take this further. They say the quote for 2020, I'm sure you would guess that, is "you're on mute." And we were very nervous about this function, and we decided that we're going to have to manage the risk of technology failing us, or us failing technology, which is more often the case. So you'll see this is an interesting little mix of some of the sessions that were pre-recorded, but also some live and active interaction you'll see with the panel discussion. So at the moment, I'm speaking live. I am going to stop speaking now, and we're going to go into the keynote speeches. So over to that. Thank you. 15 years. It seems like a flash, but it's also a very long time. Many of us can't actually quite remember the details of where we were 15 years ago, in 2005. A lot has changed, and rightfully so. It would have been a travesty if we are all still the same and in the same place. Hopefully, we have actually moved forward, become wiser, better, and more mature, not just as individuals, but also as organizations. We are also now, incidentally, when celebrating our 15th anniversary of the PIOB, standing right there at the dawn of the next chapter in our life cycle, as we start implementing the monitoring group reforms. It's probably a realistic prediction that the pace of change in our world in general, and of course for us at the PIOB, will increase exponentially over the next few years. But before we take on this new task of us, let's just stand back for a moment, and let's take this opportunity today on this very special occasion to stand still and reflect on the good and the not so good, on our victories of over the past decade and a half, and also on the lessons that we've learned from the past. We can then turn our heads towards the east, where that new dawn is rising, with the knowledge of what we have come, where we've come from, and what we've learned, understanding our fears as well as our hopes for the future. Fears and hopes, mixed in the formula that we choose, will influence our decisions, will determine our path and our pace of travel, and it will also determine our travel companions for the journey ahead. So let's reflect a little bit on fears and hopes, and I'll start off with mine, the fears that I have for this role in the PIOB and for us as the PIOB. My first fear probably is, how do we make sure that we really focus on what's important, what's fundamental for us to execute our role, instead of potentially run the risk of spending our time on admin and trivia on matters that does not really make a difference or move the needle. What will happen to the audit profession? That's a very big fear. Is the audit profession running the risk of becoming a modern day dinosaur because audits are just so expensive that it might not be in line with the value that it adds? There's interesting debates that investors have in that regard. Maybe because audits are seen not to catch frauds and failures in time, or because audits are not necessarily meeting the expectations of the investors and others. If those fears are not addressed, is there a real risk of extinction of the audit profession? And then maybe the last fear that I want to mention is, what if we, let's call it the collective we, us as the PIOB, you, the standard setters, the professional bodies and the regulators and rulemakers, what if we are moving too slowly to actually move things forward and to deal with the public trust deficit? I hear fears from other people as well. I often hear auditors say that why are the auditors seemingly always the first port of call? Why are the auditors the only ones seen to have the dockets, the ones that rise? What about the executives? What about the boards of directors and regulators when there are corporate failures? Also, is this compliance burden and this liability risk that the profession is facing, is it making it so unattractive and absolutely untenable that people don't want to participate in it in future? What's the risk of the auditors and the fear of the auditors not ever getting out of this massive risk and this, let's call it, trust deficit, and get on the front foot again, the front foot of developments, the front foot of creating new business opportunities and synergies and savings? There are lots of good things happening on continuous auditing and opportunities for assurance services on things like ESG and integrated reporting. Overall, there's a big fear of being unable to restore trust in the audit profession. These fears are few, I've just mentioned a couple, but they are valid and real, and if unaddressed, detrimental. How can we turn our fears, though, into opportunities, and how can we turn our fears into action to address this? And let me, seeing that I'm here from the very far south end of the African continent, let me share some African wisdom with you. And you might have heard of the concept of Ubuntu. If you haven't, let me explain it to you. Ubuntu basically means I am because you are. I am because we are. Ubuntu refers to togetherness. We all, in our actions, have an impact on each other, and we have an impact on society. So how is this relevant to us at the PIOB? How is it relevant to you and to me? We have seen how deep the damage of corporate scandals hit, not just eroding shareholder value and destroying trust in companies and actually eroding their social license to operate, but it goes right into the soft underbelly of society where people lose jobs and where it often has a shockwave effect on the weakest of communities and on society. Former President Barack Obama commented on Ubuntu once when he visited South Africa, and what he said is, he said, we are all bound together in ways that can be invisible to the eye, but there's a oneness to humanity. COVID-19 has demonstrated these wise words in a way that none of us could ever have imagined. In the past 6 months, we've learned exactly how interconnected we are. The oneness and of humanity that President Obama spoke of. We've also learned how your actions can affect me and vice versa. We are experiencing daily on the positive side, because of this, how innovative and humane we are under severe pressure as a human race, and how we will find a way out. Where there's a will, there's a way, and we should never lose hope. So let me talk a little bit about hope, because we've now spoken about fears, and let me get back to the monitoring group and their reforms that they've put on the table for us to implement. Reforms aimed at maybe addressing our fears, but I would like to believe reforms aimed in the first instance of creating mechanisms to realize our hopes. Hope for a greater level of independence between people that set standards and the auditors that have to implement those standards, a hope of creating new structures and processes that will rebuild the credibility and restore, hopefully enhance, the trust in the audit, and that there through the trust that we have in corporate reporting. Hope that fears can be alleviated, and hope for a sustainable future for audit as a key player in the financial reporting chain. We also hope that the audit profession and the audit service to the public at large will be restored to its rightful position of a trusted watchdog. Hope that in our attempt to do all of this, we are always keeping the public interest in the center of our radar screen, and we do indeed serve the public interest, as is our vision and goal at the PIOB. I believe it is Winston Churchill who said that sometimes doing our best is not enough. Sometimes we need to do what is required. So Anna and Saga, Inky, Kevin, Gonzalo, my dear audience, I suspect this is one of these times. We are facing grave risk of those fears not being put to rest. Doing our best will not be enough. We have to successfully execute this reform task at hand. However, actions and decisions that are merely driven by fear and that are flow from that reacting on these fears is not so much of a motivation. So let's also be proactive in stretching out to realize our hopes. Let's be innovative in bringing about the change for the better. That is surely much more inspiring and motivational. In taking the PIOB and the monitoring group reforms forward, shall we focus on these hopes instead? Shall we remember Ubuntu? I am because you are. And remember that we are interconnected, codependent, and bound together in a way that is invisible to the eye, but impossible to de-link. Let me leave you with the words of my country's beloved leader and former president. We refer to him as Madiba, which is an African word that means father. The late President Nelson Mandela, who said, "May your choices reflect your hopes and not your fears." Thank you.